Okay, so today we're diving into the mind of a thinker who imagined something pretty radical. I'm talking about a world with absolutely no laws, no prisons, and no government at all. A world where he believed humanity could just perfect itself, using nothing but pure reason. His name was William Godwin, and his ideas, well, they ended up laying the entire foundation for anarchism.
So Godwin posed this fundamental question, one that still kind of messes with our heads today. What if we just didn't need to be ruled? Seriously, what if every single person guided only by pure reason and logic could cooperate to create a perfectly just society? Yeah, I know, it sounds like something straight out of science fiction. But for Godwin, this wasn't a fantasy. It was humanity's ultimate destination.
All right, so let's get to know the man behind this wild idea. We're talking about William Godwin, an English philosopher and novelist who lived from 1756 to 1836. Now, what's fascinating is that he never actually called himself an anarchist. But his core beliefs, they became the essential groundwork for pretty much all of modern anarchist thought. You could say he's its intellectual father. And just so we're clear, philosophical anarchism isn't about chaos and bombs. It's about the opposition to being forced to do things, the belief that people can organize themselves voluntarily.
Godwin's whole philosophy really rests on four super powerful and, honestly, really optimistic pillars. First up, you've got radical individual liberty. Then, this incredible faith in rationalism, the idea that logic, reason, could solve just about any problem. That led him to believe in human perfectibility, this idea that we're all capable of getting better and better, morally and intellectually, forever. And if you put all that together, he argued, if people are free and rational, they'll just naturally choose to cooperate with each other instead of being controlled by force.
Okay, now let's talk about the book that started it all, the one that really set everything in motion. In 1793, Godwin published this work that was so revolutionary it sent absolute shockwaves through English society. It was called An Inquiry Concerning Political Justice. And listen, this thing wasn't just some critique of the system, it was a full-on blueprint for a brand new world.
And the core argument of political justice, wow, it was explosive for its time. Godwin basically came out and said that government, just by existing, is a corrupting force. Why? Because it relies on coercion, the threat of violence, to keep everyone in line. He argued that this was not just immoral, it was completely unnecessary. He proposed that an educated, rational population could totally govern itself. So this really breaks down the two systems perfectly. On one side, you've got government by coercion. Authority enforcing rules, which Godwin said just keeps inequality going and squashes our freedom. But then, on the other side, in his vision, you have a society built on cooperation. Here, people just reason together, they help each other out, and everyone has total personal autonomy. It's a complete flip of how we usually think about social order.
So the big question is, right, how do we get to this perfect society? Now, a lot of radicals back then were calling for violent revolution, right? Tear it all down. But Godwin, he was the complete opposite. He was a gradualist. He believed the only way to get to this stateless society was through patient, calm discussion and, this is the big one, education. His whole thing was, if you change the way people think, society will naturally change itself.
But here's the thing, Godwin wasn't just some philosopher writing these dense, heavy books that only a few people would read. No, he was smarter than that. He knew that to get his ideas out to a wider audience, he needed to tell a story. So just 1 year after Political Justice, he published one of the most influential novels of the era, Caleb Williams.
And on the surface, this book is a gripping psychological thriller. I mean, it's got it all. You've got this curious young guy, Caleb Williams, who works for a rich, well-respected squire named Mr. Falkland. But Caleb's curiosity gets the better of him, and he uncovers a horrifying secret. His beloved master is a murderer. And from that moment on, that knowledge becomes a terrible curse.
This quote from Caleb himself just perfectly captures the paranoid vibe of the whole book. He can't unknow what he knows, and his master will do absolutely anything to protect his reputation. The whole novel just turns into this terrifying cat and mouse game, totally driven by obsession and the corrupting nature of power. And when you break down Caleb's struggle like this, you see it, right? His journey is basically Godwin's philosophy put into action. The whole plot is designed to show how authority, personified by Falkland, and the entire legal system isn't used for justice. It's used to protect the powerful and to crush the little guy who dares to know the truth. Caleb's journey is a story, yeah, but it's really a fictional takedown of the very institutions Godwin wanted to get rid of.
Godwin's creative output during this time was just immense. The guy was on fire. And he wasn't just focused on politics.
He also started digging into the darker, more Gothic side of the human mind, exploring the potential dangers of the very Enlightenment ideas he was usually all about.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It's wild. In just a handful of years, he drops his masterpiece of political philosophy, then the novel that brings it all to life, and then he pivots and writes a full-blown Gothic novel. It just shows a mind that was absolutely firing on all cylinders, using totally different genres to explore his big, complex ideas.
And Saint Leon is so fascinating because it's basically a cautionary tale. The hero gets everything you could possibly want. The Philosopher's Stone, the elixir of life, ultimate knowledge and power. But, and this is the key, without a moral compass to guide him, this amazing gift becomes a curse. It cuts him off from humanity. It's almost like Godwin is questioning his own philosophy here, asking, hey, is reason really enough on its own?
So what's the legacy of this radical thinker and novelist? What did he leave behind? Well, even though his fame kind of faded during his own lifetime, his ideas planted these seeds that would just keep growing for centuries. You can still hear their echoes in politics, philosophy, and literature today.
And his influence is just huge. I mean, he basically provided the philosophical DNA for anarchism. He was read closely by major thinkers like Marx and Engels. His impact on literature is just as massive, influencing writers like Charles Dickens. And then there's his own daughter, Mary Shelley. She clearly soaked up his cautionary themes about knowledge without morality, the stuff he first explored in St. Leon, and then she went and created Frankenstein. Godwin really proved that a novel could be a super powerful tool for social critique.
Which brings us to one last question, and this one's for you to think about. When you look at our world today, with all its complex global challenges, from climate change to intense political polarization, is Godwin's deep, deep faith in individual reason and voluntary cooperation just a naive dream from a bygone era? Or is it maybe a radical solution we haven't even really tried?